We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callTW.
So you think that you can tell us how to live our lives, never questioning the source from which your moral code derives. You think that suffering is part of some great plan that's been devised. I wonder, what will it take for you to start opening your eyes? I wonder.
You don't like my dancing? I'm a very, very good lip syncer. Like, I nail it every single time. Hello, everybody. Hi. I am
Hello.
Shannon Q. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. Today is October 10th, 2020, and you are watching the Atheist Experience, which is a product of the atheist community of Austin. We are a 501c3 organization dedicated to the promotion of positive atheist culture and the separation of religion and government. And today, somebody made a huge scheduling error, and I am evidently in charge, which is awful, but we can accommodate for that by my fabulous co-host who is here with me today. Everybody say hi to Johnny P. Angel.
Hey, everybody. You don't want me in charge.
I mean, I
in
do.
charge.
I do. Every time I find out I'm in charge, I'm like, oh man.
And the people watching are like, oh man, Shannon's in charge. So same reaction.
So much responsibility. I can barely take it. How you doing today, Johnny? We haven't hosted together. I'm pumped.
I know. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. Not in a creepy way, in a nice, well-balanced, healthy. Good, Shannon Q. So this is a good day for me.
Oh, well, good.
Thanks
I'm glad. I'm glad. That's more pressure, but that's okay.
No,
I'll see how I'll do it.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
Yeah.
What could go wrong? Right? What could go wrong? Well, are you ready to take some calls? Are you pumped? Let's just jump right into it.
I'm pumped and ready.
Okay, cool. Let's talk to the people.
Mhm.
All right. First, let's talk to Ryder. Hi, Ryder. You're on the Atheist Experience. What would you like to talk about today?
Hello, the lovely Shannon Q and the wonderful, devilish, fiendish Johnny P. Angel.
I'm lovely also. Dim the lights.
Also?
Give me that soft filter, and I'm very lovely.
It's all about the filters.
I love your
100%.
background, Johnny, if you don't mind me saying. I'm a visually impaired caller, and your background is quite lovely. I'd love to paint it sometime. I don't know if it's virtual or not, but it is nice.
Take a screen cap. Thanks a lot. I love that.
Cool. What would you like to discuss today, my friend?
So, I'd like to talk about a range of subjects. I don't know what you want to get to first. My own personal, I'm a theist/theist. I could explain that a little bit. Objectively, Dan didn't agree with that one. I could explain my own testimony. I was thinking about maybe talking about even though I'm pro-choice, pro-rights, when it comes to abortion, on the abortion issue, I still do see the other side of the coin, on the pro-lifer issue, on the pro-life side, in that the only thing, and I was wondering in the sense, which is why I stayed out of the voting realm of it all. But I tend to more lean toward the pro-choice rights.
Okay.
And I was wondering, has anyone come on this show and made the argument that, like, for example, I've heard Matt often say that slavery is morally wrong. One of the reasons because those slaves could have, slaves can have such a, not just because it's morally and ethically wrong to own somebody as property, but because
Okay.
they have a valuable life and they could become doctors. What if,
Right.
like, what if, these, fetuses in a womb are basically slaves to their mothers, requiring life and sustenance via a tube that is basically a chain. And the only way to free them from the bondage and constraints of the womb is to abort the fetus, which would end the life of a potential doctor or lawyer or mathematician or scientist. I mean,
What?
this is
Okay,
these
so
symphonies going.
writer. I gotta slow you down for a second because you have covered multiple topics from multiple perspectives. So it seems as though you've narrowed in on a topic that you want to focus on from the start. It's not the topic that you mentioned at the call screener, but that's okay. We can talk about this. If you're talking about abortion, you are a pro-choice person. Is that what you said? You're a pro-choice. You're not pro-forced birth.
I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-choice.
Okay.
Rights, yes.
Okay, so why don't we talk about something that you and I might disagree on, as opposed, or perhaps the subject that you called in about, as opposed to going through a hypothetical thought experiment, so that we can have a more fruitful discussion. How does that sound?
Well, as always, Shannon, you know how to keep people on track. So yes.
Sometimes. So you're a deist and you wanted to talk about like concepts of time, which sounds interesting to me. So let's have a chat about that. What do you want to talk about?
So concepts of time. Now, Steve, if I'm correct, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I know you most certainly will, which is one thing I like about you.
All right.
One thing the Almighty likes about you too, by the way.
Oh, interesting. Okay, some insight there.
By the way. Yeah, I talked to him personally. I talked to him audibly, by the way. Anyway, we'll get into that in a minute.
Okay. What's the concepts of time, though? What's the concepts of time?
Yep. Concept of time. Now, Stephen Hawking said that there was no time before the Big Bang. Therefore, there was no time for God to exist because time didn't exist prior to the Big Bang. Is that correct?
I don't know. Maybe I don't. I'm not particularly well versed in being able to validate Stephen Hawking's quotes.
Yeah, I saw him on Into the Universe before he had passed, and that's one of the quotes that I saw in that program.
Okay, cool. So what's up with that? So you have
So basically, my theory of time is that now I don't know, like, this may be because I'm visually impaired.
Okay.
But I've always had a hard time reading a manual, I don't know, a wall clock, that ones with second hands and minute hands, because I really my vision is too poor that I can't see the minutes and the seconds and the hands. Okay. But I've always perceived those watches, and the way that I perceive time is a measurement of distance, not a measurement of anything other than that. Because the second hand, it's just merely a second is merely the distance that it takes between those hands to get to one notch to the other.
But that's not actually what time is, though, right? Like, you can acknowledge that that's not what time is. That's just your way of mentally identifying how to measure the passage of time. It's just a mental mnemonic that you've used.
What do you perceive time to be, Shannon? Because it's been debated. It still is debated. I mean, right? I mean, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm not like a physicist or a philosopher. That's not really my realm. I could give you what I think my best answer is, and then I'll throw it to Johnny. Maybe he can articulate better than I. But I feel
all my thoughts on time are like, I keep on using time as a word for it, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's the amount of. Never mind.
Right, because yeah.
So, like, I would see time passage being a moment, like, to me, like, from an individual perspective, I guess I perceive time as the progression of moments that are no longer in existence, right? So that's what I would see time as. But I'm not a physicist or a philosopher. What do you think, Johnny?
Yeah, it seems like it's the sequence of events, a particular ordered sequence of events, of cause and effect, A, then B, then C, then D, upon which, or within which I exist. I mean, this is not a scientist's understanding of time. This is just some guy's understanding of what time is.
So my follow-up question to you would be like, what is the relevance and how does that, like, what does it pertain to? You brought up the subject for what reason?
Yes. Well, I wanted to talk about the idea that usually theists and deists say that God is outside of time, that God comes, God is prior to the Big Bang, if you want to say that God was the ultimate mover, started the Big Bang, that God is outside of time and space, but rather that I am a theist who believes, no, God steps into time and space to create the universe.
Okay, so your perception of time is relevant because it ties into your conceptualization of God, like the God that you believe in is a God that steps in and out of time. Is that what I just heard you say? So exists outside of time and then somehow
he steps into time to create the universe, because the universe because I view time as a measurement of distance and not a series of moments.
Okay. But so God's
distance is key. But
I get that the concept, writer, I get that you have this concept of God stepping in and out of time to sustain or create the universe, but I guess I could ask you, what the heck does that mean? And more importantly, how do you prove that that's true? It's a concept for you're sort of wrestling with the idea of perhaps the existence of time before the Big Bang, and you've created this, or you've accepted this concept that there's a being outside of the flow of time. Well, that's like that doesn't really make any sense to me. I know that we're all trying to wrestle with where does space-time come from, but we can't just cook up ideas and special pleading there. I mean, I can conceive of a God that's a square circle. I mean, maybe before time is just as logically impossible as a square circle, right? And trying to understand it, you're never going to get anywhere, because you can't even prove that you can't necessarily prove that a God exists first. But you said you spoke to God. You said you have verbal communication with God. Does God tell you how?
Go ahead.
Does God?
I apologize.
No, it's okay. There's a delay. Does God tell you how God exists outside of time and steps in and out of the flow?
I haven't talked to him about that one, John. He just I haven't talked to him. I haven't asked him about that one yet. We just get to so many other topics, that just the outside of time and inside of time thing. I mean, he's told me that he can walk through time, kind of like time fades in and out around him. If he wants to go to, let's say he's in the 1920s and he wants to go all the way back to the 1400s, the whole surroundings will just change around him, kind of like just everything. I mean, it morphs away. I mean, I don't know. I just
like Doctor Strange, or like the Time Variance Authority, or perhaps like the Doctor. I mean,
something like.
Has God taken you on one of these journeys?
I've been to heaven.
Okay, so I want to get back to the time thing and just kind of reiterate Johnny's point, because
quickly. I
Sure.
I have to apologize. This call went in a way different direction in the beginning than I meant to take it. I did take a couple of pops off my Canna-Vape. I do have my medical card. I've got post-traumatic stress disorder, and I was thinking it might act up on the call, but because of being nervous and all, But I wanted to ask you, I know you do have a medical degree. I was wondering.
I do not.
How often in the cadaver? Oh, I thought you did.
I do not have a medical. Okay, so you're having a disparate and disjointed dialogue with us right now, which is making it very difficult for me to explore the subject matter that we're attempting to explore.
Oh, I happen to shift gears like crazy in conversation. It was a question that I wanted to ask you because you'll have to forgive me. It was just a question that was burning in me to ask you because I was under the impression and assumption that you had been present during medical autopsies, and
Writer. I'm going to stop you for a second. I think we're going to let you go because the conversation is becoming incredibly disjointed. And I've never been present for a medical autopsy, nor am I any type of physician, nor do I have a medical degree, nor have I ever expressed that I do. So I'm going to let you go because I have concerns about the direction of the conversation as well. So I'm gonna let you go now. You can find me on Twitter if you'd like to message me your question, but I wouldn't message me a question about an autopsy because I was never present at one, nor do I know anything about them. So I will let you go. Thank you very, very much, and we will move on to the next call. All right.
Yes, take care of yourself.
Thank you, Ryder.
Well done.
Okay, enjoyed talking to Ryder.
Yes.
It's very difficult though to have a conversation where there's clearly disparate or disjointed dialectics involved. So we will move on to the next call. But before we do, I just would like to let you know that if you would like to support us here at the ACA, there are some ways that you can support both the Atheist Experience and the ACA. You can become a member for as little as 99 cents a month. You just click on that join button that's down below the video, and that'll give you access to special chat emojis, and you'll be immune to messaging limits that non-members have, like slow mode, for example. The Atheist The Atheist Experience is one of the shows put on by the ACA, but you have to make sure that you check out the other shows as well. There's Secular Sexuality that is on Thursdays starting at 7 p.m. Central. Truth Wanted, which airs live on Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. And then we have our Sunday shows. Talk Heathen airs at 1 p.m. Central. The Nonprofits is on right before this show. And then you can watch us at 3 p.m. Central.
That's right.
And then you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/The Atheist Experience. All right. So, Johnny, are you ready to take another call?
Yes, ma'am.
I have one in mind. We will talk to Joshua next. Hello, Joshua. You were on the Atheist Experience. What would you like to discuss today?
Yes. Hello.
Hi.
Yes, hello. So I would like to discuss. Hi. So I would like to discuss my conversion to Christianity and my receiving the Holy Spirit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've done that too.
I'm just going to kind of go over my testimony. I'm actually a Christian socialist, so I'm not a part of the evangelical right or any of that crap.
Okay.
So that we're clear. But I'm just kind of going to read you my testimony as I've kind of recorded it on Reddit, just so this kind of makes things easier.
If I could ask a favor, Joshua, a lot of times people, they get on the show and they want to give the full fleshed out, detailed tapestry of their lives. And although that is meaningful and interesting and essential to really understanding a person, it does not make for the best YouTube. So if you're going to tell your experience, no disrespect to your experience, but could you trim it a lot?
And maybe to have a discussion. We also aren't looking for proselytization. So what would be ideal in the interest of dialogue is just what you think is relevant or pertinent that you would like to discuss with us, as opposed to like a monologue for us to simply listen to, as this show is a discussion show.
I understand, but there's not going to be background. I'm actually going to start the day immediately before. I'm just not going to be a whole backstory.
Okay, go if you can give us the Coles Notes version, the synopsis of what it is, that would be great. And just keep in mind though that if it does become proselytization, I will have to interrupt you so that we're not simply just having a TED talk about your conversion. Go right ahead.
Go right ahead. So I was at Parliament Hill in Ottawa the day before my conversion. This is for Canada's National Day of Truth and Reconciliation on the 30th of October. I began feeling an incredibly powerful, positive spiritual force as I listened to our Indigenous leaders speak about their lived experiences. Without going into any more details, we're going to go back to the next morning of my vacation in Toronto, Friday, October 1st, where I received the Holy Spirit. it was early the next morning after having slept a couple of hours in the hotel. So in particular, I felt something that was probably by the apostles and Acts. It was all human language, no glossolalia or any of that speaking in tongues bullshit. It was basically my eyes started flooding with tears. I heard the words that all made sense, and I felt this immense sense of serenity and joy. Since then, I received these immense spiritual gifts that have allowed me to unburden myself for the past 7 years of tribulation and communicate far more effectively in both English and in French. Again, keeping things very general. I had some incredible conversations, far beyond anything that I had been able to do before, and again, very general. It feels like
Hey, Joshua, pause.
Yeah.
Are you on speakerphone right now?
Yes, I am.
Please get off speakerphone.
I'm on headphones, actually. And
Get off headphones and put the phone up to your ear.
Yes, I'll be happy. You just give me a moment, please.
Okay, that sounds good. And then I'd like to, before we progress anymore, I'd like to have a little bit of a conversation about what you've laid out to us already and what the relevance might be to a conversation. Can you hear us again? You there, Joshua?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Crystalline.
So what are you looking for from me?
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like I get the gist of it. I get the context in which it took place, and I get that you had an experience. But I'm not certain why the call, though. So did you call us just to relay the experience, or do you think it's something that should be compelling to us as well? And if so, why?
Or are you doubting that it was an experience? Do you want explanations to what that experience could have been?
I'm not doubting that it was an experience. My point here is more that I don't necessarily believe that my spiritual path is universal to everyone. I believe that it's possible to do God's work, whether you're a Christian, whether you're an atheist, a Jew, a Sikh, whatever else. So I don't believe in exclusive revelation or exclusive salvation, but my path is Christianity, likely through the United Church of Canada.
Okay, so the reason that you called in is because you wanted to express to people, non-believers and believers alike, that your version of Christianity is inclusive of them. Is that what I'm gleaning from this conversation?
Yes, I'm a universalist with respect to salvation.
Okay.
I don't believe that my path is universal with respect to truth and spiritual revelation. I believe it to be my walk with God.
Okay, so if that's your experience and if that's your specific belief, then neat, right? But you must understand that it's certainly not going to be everybody's, and that your inclusiveness is great. I love me some inclusiveness. That's awesome. But that doesn't make something true, nor is it particularly compelling. Do you feel as though you were compelled to call us because you wanted us to know that you include us, or do you perceive in salvation? Which also, by the way, I don't feel like I need it, because I still don't think it's true. So you saying your particular belief system allows for it, I hate to say meaningless, but it's kind of meaningless to somebody like me.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, what I'm asking is, on what level do you want us to respond to what you've presented to us? Do you want us to try to debunk, or do you want us to say good job, or do you want us to say that's interesting? And this is honest question. What is it? How do you want to talk about it?
All right. So actually, in that case, I'm just going to skip most of the personal stuff, and I'm going to go to what I believe the Bible has to say, and what I believe the truth is about Jesus' sacrifice in the Great Commission. Would that be a more interesting topic?
I would love to hear what the truth is about Jesus' sacrifice. Jesus sacrifice. Yeah, please, let's talk about that.
Right. So I'm convinced that the most essential component of Jesus' sacrifice is in his choosing to forgo, in spite of his intellect, wisdom, and charisma, any wealth and worldly power, so as to serve as one of God's avatars through his work as a teacher, spiritual mentor, and community leader. Like to me,
So that's predicated under the assumption, though, that he would have had those available to him and chose otherwise, despite the fact that that being something that, even if it was available to him, was something that he desired.
It's predicated also on the notion that he existed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that he existed and also was the Son of God. So
Yeah.
it's presuppositional, right?
Right.
So you're saying not I have to take several assumptions in order to even continue this argument, right? So I have to assume that there was a Jesus as depicted in the Bible, that he was the Son of God, that he had this path available to him, that he chose otherwise, that choosing otherwise was virtuous, and that says something about salvation. And I have difficulty buying into most of that.
Yeah, Joshua, we're not there yet. You're pretty far along this path, and we're going to back it all the way up, because back that claim up, because can you give us some evidence that that Jesus was as he is claimed to be in the Bible? Because if we keep on assuming all these things that you're taking for granted, we're like most of the way there for you, and now it's just biblical interpretation. It's metaphysical speculation. But back it up all the way. Was there a Jesus? Was he as depicted in the Bible? And give us some proof of that. We kind of need that. As a metaphor,
no,
I'm fine with talking about it, but then it becomes literary interpretation. But I don't think you're interested in literary interpretation. I think you're interested in something else, and I'd love to know what that is.
I actually don't care whether or not a literal Jesus existed. I don't care. I care more about Jesus as a metaphor, insofar as there may have been this man who chose to forego worldly wealth and power to serve as a mentor, a spiritual teacher, and a community leader. Whether it actually happened is irrelevant to me. I believe that it happened, but I don't require others to. I don't believe that it's a necessary component of salvation.
So you're just inspired by a concept, really, is what you're saying. So you're saying the concept that at any point in history, there could be a person who fulfills these, sort of the things that I see as virtuous. The fact that could be and it could be anyone in this instance too, if you're using it as a metaphor. It could be Steve as opposed to Jesus. It could be Shannon as opposed to Jesus. It could be insert name here. It's the action that you find virtuous and inspiring. Is that that's what I'm hearing? So that doesn't lead to a belief in God. It doesn't specifically need to be Jesus. You're just saying the fact that at any point in time in history, somebody could fulfill these things I think are virtuous is inspiring to me.
That's what I'm hearing too. Is that correct?
Right. That's yes, that's correct. I can't necessarily prove that the literal Jesus as depicted in the Bible existed, nor do I necessarily give a damn.
Okay, so then if you don't care and it's just something that inspires you, you talked about salvation. What is salvation in your view? What is it? Is it so I get out of, because if Jesus doesn't exist, maybe, then does hell exist? Does obliteration exist? Does heaven exist? What is a salvation state in your worldview?
And at that point, does sin even exist too? Like you would go all the way back, is that Jesus died to absolve sin. Does the concept of sin even exist? And now is there even absolution? Because if you don't need a literal Jesus.
Yeah, great. So what is it? What is salvation, and does sin exist in your worldview?
Right. So we'll actually begin with salvation. I'm personally a Trinitarian and a Universalist. Essentially what I believe is that anybody who walks one of a spiritual path akin to the example that Jesus led is saved, irrespective of whether they're Christian, whether they're atheist, Jew, Baha'i, Sikh, whatever. I also believe that not everybody is saved immediately, but that all people, upon death, have
That doesn't answer Johnny's question, though.
Yes.
perfection.
Right. So, but can you answer Johnny's question, though? Because Johnny's question is an important one, right? Because now you're getting into disparate belief systems as well. If you're saying it doesn't even matter to you if a literal Jesus exists, but then you're talking about salvation. And the concept of Jesus is very intrinsically tied to salvation via the absolution of sin that was only done through him. So can you answer Johnny's question about what is salvation and is there sin, please?
Saving from what? What is salvation?
Salvation is salvation is basically being delivered from a shitty life and from a shitty afterlife through following this example. However, I believe that salvation is universal for those who choose to follow the example. Those who don't choose, upon their deaths, are given kind of the option. You can either go through some sort of perfection, not like torturous or like hellish in a purgatorial sense, but more a chance of redemption.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm fully understanding what you're saying. So I'm just gonna interrupt you for a sec because I think this is an important point. So you're saying salvation is just if you follow one person's example, and you haven't gotten to the sin yet. If you follow one person's example, then you get rewarded. And that's what salvation is based on what you're articulating. Right. And if you don't follow that one person's example, you could potentially get punished, but then you get a second chance somehow to have another kick at the can so that you could choose whether or not you get the reward. So salvation is a reward for following a specific behavioral pattern. So why would people be rewarded for following that behavioral pattern? So what is it about that behavioral pattern that entails reward, and not following that behavioral pattern means that you have that reward not either relinquished from you or not given to you? Why? Okay,
so first of all, I personally believe that hell does literally exist, but that nobody actually goes there.
That is okay. That is not the answer to the question, though.
Yeah.
It's a mild deflection. So why would God choose to reward one behavioral pattern and relinquish that reward from other behavioral patterns?
Because I believe that the Jesus Christ, as presented in the Bible, was a sort of radical, was an extremely intelligent, wise, and charismatic man. I believe it was very likely that he could have achieved incredible wealth, incredible temporal power, but chose not to, so that he could do as much good as possible.
Not an answer to the question, though. That's just you appealing to the benefit, to the virtue of that behavioral pattern. That's not you explaining why that behavioral pattern in and of itself would constitute a God saying you guys get a free pass into this paradise, and everybody else who doesn't follow that behavioral pattern somehow either has that relinquished from them or is punished.
Yeah, and I'm also that's that. And also, what this all sounds like to me is literary interpretation, speculation, and I don't know, just expounding upon what you would like to be true. I don't want to make another Lord of the Rings reference, but I want to go to the Undying Lands. I want to meet the Valar. I want to meet Fëanor in the fourth. After the second song of the Ainur, but that doesn't mean that it's true. So what do you have to establish that any of this is actually real instead of just something that sounds cool to you? Because it sounds cool to me. I don't mind using books. I use books as metaphors all the time. And my friends know that I use Star Trek episodes as metaphors for, moral conundrums all the time. It doesn't mean that it's real.
Right.
It just means that it's helpful because the writers of that media has teased out a moral conundrum that might parallel something that we meet in real life. So what do you have that any of this is anything more than just some writers trying to express the difficulties we have in life? Because you're not just saying, I like to use Jesus as a potential sage-like person,
Or of God, or like
a
spiritual.
god or an exemplar or something like that. You're also making claims about the nature of the universe. There is life, there is death, and then there's an aftertime where you live for either a little bit of time or a lot longer than that. And that there are standards upon which one must live. And there's a purification process, and there's a cosmic judgment of some kind, whether it's judgment of oneself. What do you have to establish that any of this is really real in the really real world?
I've never claimed that I could prove it to be true. It's what I believe to be true.
Well, why do you believe it to be true then? Why do you believe it to be true?
Because it dovetails nicely with the spiritual experiences that I've received, alongside with the gifts and lessons that I've learned through those experiences. It doesn't prove that it's true.
Right.
It's true insofar as it's caused a positive transformation to me. Moreover, in examples like Star Trek or Lord of the Rings, those works were created explicitly to be works of fiction. Nobody ever intended for us to believe that they're true.
So what about when people of the LDS Church, they have similar experiences that tell them that there is but one way, let's say, toward salvation, and their book was created not as entertainment, because it's not entertaining, but instead as a pathway to the true way of life, right? And they feel good stuff when they read it and they follow those rules.
Right.
Are they wrong?
I believe yes and no. I believe that they're wrong, as many other Christians are wrong for believing that salvation and paradise are exclusive to them. That's where I feel that they're wrong.
I'm gonna stop you for a second, Joshua, just because we've gone exceedingly long, and it seems like we've gone exceedingly long just so that you can give us what your personal interpretation of an experience is that you had and how it comports to a specific known theology. So that's what the entirety of the conversation seems to boil down to, is that I had an experience, and I'm affiliating that experience with this sect of known theology, and I'm going to attempt to explain why me doing that comports with reality. Right. So I totally understand that, and I appreciate the conversation, but we do have like a lot of other callers on the line, but call back some other time, and we'll see if we can flush more of it out. So I appreciate you.
Appreciate that. I have hours of things to say, but I'll definitely acknowledge that others have to share their piece, and that we only have an hour and a half or so collectively. So by all means, let the people speak. Amen.
There you go,
Joshua. Have a good rest of your day. See you later. Bye.
Sounds like he cares about being a what he thinks is a good person and being non-judgmental and all that stuff. If we could replace the Westboro Baptist Church with Joshua's, I wonder where we would be. Right.
Well, I mean, if we could replace the Westboro Baptist Church with, I don't know, like anything other than the Westboro Baptist.
The U-Haul franchise.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. A McDonald's, something. All right. So before we go on to our next call, I just wanted to let you guys know that we now have a channel that houses all of our ACA shows in audio podcast form. So you can visit tiny.cc. I can't articulate anything today, apparently. tiny.cc/AEN podcast. That's where you can go and listen to Atheist Experience, Talk Heathen, Truth Wanted, Secular Sexuality, and the nonprofits all in one place. We also have 3 Facebook groups, and they are all run by our fans, and they are for the fans, and that's where you can interact with people. The first is the Atheist Experience fan group, and that's at facebook.com/group/AXPFG. There's also the Atheist Experience private fan group. That's where you can interact with others without having to disclose that you're part of the group, should that be something that is of interest to you or a necessity. That's facebook.com/groups/AXPPPFG. And we also have a new group. It's another Atheist Experience fan group, and it's the Atheist Experience fan group, Atheist versus Theist Debates. And that's where you can try out some of your arguments on theists and also try out your arguments on atheists. And you can find that at facebook.com/groups/AXP fan debates. All right. So we will move on to our next call. I think we will take Charlie. Let's talk to Charlie. Hello, Charlie. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. What would you like to talk about today?
Howdy. I had a series of questions for y'all,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't mind answering them.
We'll
okay.
see where that goes.
Question.
Yeah, let's start with one question.
Let's start with one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ease us in.
yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
No problem. So the first question is, I wanted to know whether or not y'all subscribe to naturalism. So the philosophical belief that everything arises from natural properties and causes, and that non-natural explanations can be excluded or discounted.
As articulated, I'm not sure. I think that I would subscribe to naturalism. Like the first part, I would agree with. The second part, I think, might be a little bit of a bridge too far for me, because just to flat out say they can be excluded, for me, would seem as though I'm closing off to possibilities that I don't necessarily want to close off to.
Right.
Of the supernatural existing. I'm not closed off to that being the case. I just don't believe, based on my current experience, exposure, and knowledge, that it is the case or is likely to be possible. So I guess maybe, I don't know, Johnny, do you disagree with me anywhere there?
I don't even know what a non-natural cause would be. I guess it would be God or Thor or something, but I haven't seen any evidence of it, and I'm very much open to it. I'd love to see some evidence of it, because it would make the world, as interesting as it is, far more interesting. Because now we got magic.
That's a good segue into the next question then. The next question was,
I aim to serve.
Whether or not you believe. No problem. The next question was if you believe only in things you have evidence for. In other words, you believe things that you can't, and so you don't believe in things that you can't falsify, like God, for instance.
Oh, well, do I believe? Here's something. I can't falsify that aliens exist on the other side of the galaxy or of the universe. And yet I kind of have a very middling belief that extraterrestrial life exists. It's very, very middling, not very intense at all. So.
Yeah, and I would kind of agree with that, but I think that my beliefs, I think my beliefs are apportioned to their relevance to day-to-day life, probably as well. So I would be with Johnny with that. I think that there's a high probability for there to be some form of alien life, intelligent or otherwise, even if it's bacterial on some planet somewhere, just based on the expanse of the universe. But the chance that, especially in my lifetime, that it would even be able to be on the table for falsification is relatively low.
Oh, sure.
Right. So,
but in principle, it could be falsified.
In principle, it could be falsified. If that's what you're looking for, that anything that could in principle be falsified, I don't believe in anything that couldn't in principle be falsified. I'd say that's a strong maybe for me. If I'm understanding correctly, it would be a yes.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put any money down on that belief.
On the right,
like, oh, sure, and like that's not possible, and here's the reasons why. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I'm apportioning it to the relevance to how I operate day to day.
What Shannon Q said. To what Shannon Q said, it just seems like this is the last question.
Okay.
So the next question was going to be, how could then? I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay.
You could hear that. Apologies. So the next question was, how could naturalism be falsified or falsify itself through empirical means that the natural world doesn't exist. And you can't falsify naturalism or the natural world. Why would you believe in it?
You can't think of any way that the natural world existing could be falsifiable. Like if there was no perceptions at all of the natural world, that would falsify naturalism. So it could be falsifiable by that means, right? So if there was no entity anywhere in existence, in extant reality, that had any, perceptions of reality, that would falsify it. I suppose you would still need an entity, which would be a natural, unless you're arguing supernatural. Anyway, but yeah, so can you not think of another way that the natural world could be falsifiable? Like, for example, if we're attempting to measure something that's external to us, we have tools that we utilize for measurement that give us like consistent measurements of the outside world that can be corroborated by other people utilizing the same tools. If those tools stopped working and stopped giving us consistent results, that the outside world exists in the fashion that we anticipated to, then that would falsify it.
You could show us something that's non-natural.
Here's the
that would totally do it too. God could be like,
I read that straight out of the chat. That's not Johnny. That's not Johnny Angel.
Give an account.
Some DB said it in the chat, and I just read it.
Make an objection.
So. Sorry, go ahead.
I might be able to give an account of that, but I just wanted to make an objection to Shannon Q's answer, because it seems like what you propose, it would just be like question begging, right? To show through natural means that the natural world exists, or through empirical means that we can observe the empirical world.
So that you're just not accepting falsification criteria at all ever, though, then, right? So you're never, ever accepting so that just means that falsification criteria just can't exist in any circumstance if you're accepting that to be true, wouldn't it?
Well, no, the objection is just that the objection was just following from the line of questioning,
you're holding that
there's not going to be evidence.
This is interesting though. So I've got a question for you, because I think this is interesting. So you're saying, I want to make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying. It's question begging because you'd be using natural means to measure something natural. But the question itself was about falsification criteria, and all of it led to talking about falsification criteria and how that comports to formulation of beliefs, and whether or not it's reasonable to hold beliefs that can or cannot be falsified. So if the road that you were leading us down towards was basically saying that it's unreasonable to hold beliefs that to only hold beliefs that can be falsified, because falsification criteria exist within the natural world, and thus it's question begging to use any form of measurement, then it would have to hold that no beliefs ever could be falsified, which would mean, like, is that what you were trying to get us to? That no belief, like falsification criteria, is just useless because it exists within the natural world?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, what were you attempting to lead to then?
Yeah,
because that's what's interesting to me.
It was just, sure. Well, maybe that is interesting, but mostly I wanted to kind of show that naturalism falls into something. Are you familiar with the Munchausen's trilemma, where all explanations are going to be like circular, or they're going to be axiomatic, or they're going to be, let me think, there was a third one, axiomatic, or there's going to be an infinite regress. So there's an explanation, that explanation has an explanation, and that explanation has an explanation.
So is the
naturalism,
that
falls into other world views. Yeah, sorry. So the problem with naturalism is that through it can't be self-justifying, right? So that would be a problem for that view.
Well, I suppose like everything, like
criterion.
Everything that we use to measure the natural world exists within the natural world. Like, I'll grant you that, because that's just on its face true, right? So if you see that as a problem with naturalism, though, just as, or you see that as an issue with how you measure what you believe, I think that's where we would part ways, because it's the best tool available to us. Are you suggesting that the fact that this maybe is the case, that everything, or arguably is the case, everything in the natural world is what we would need to use to measure the existence of the natural world? Like, if you're saying that that's the problem with naturalism, like, what criteria are you using that's better than that in order to form your belief? Or is this just you saying, there's some problems with naturalism too, philosophically, so what?
It's philosophical. So it's like, so what is just that it's not naturalism as a worldview is going to be unjustified, right?
Well, then no view is justified then. Like, so how is your view justified then, right? So you're just saying naturalism as a worldview isn't justified. And the reason for that is anything that we use to measure the natural world has to exist within the natural world, which I granted that is a philosophical issue, I guess. I'm not a philosopher. But that doesn't lead me to that. Thus, what I believe, or that not naturalism is thus more reasonable.
Right.
Like that's where you can't get me to. You can't get me to thus not naturalism. Anything outside of naturalism is a more reasonable belief, just because there's that one issue with measurement tools used within naturalism existing in the natural world. Like, how do you form a belief that is true then? Because then there would be problems with anybody making any statement of truth, period, full stop at all. But like, that's a problem everybody would have, not just a naturalist.
Yes, and what does your non-naturalistic view do that a naturalistic worldview can't do? What I guess we're not making predictions about things in the spirit realm that we can't have any experience of, and we can't test it. I mean,
be able to make predictions about. Being able to test predictions is going to fall into the realm of empirical claims.
Okay, great. So essentially, I can get by just fine in this world using just a naturalistic worldview, right? Using empirical data and what have you, and I can just, go about my business. And there may be some horrible spiritual threat or non-natural obstacles or something facing me, but I would not have the tools at my disposal because I don't employ non-naturalistic analyses to avoid those threats. There's no way of knowing about it. I just don't see the utility of any of this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And how would you perceive anything, like Matt just made this point in the chat, and it's interesting. Like, how would you perceive anything not natural? Like, how could you demonstrate something not natural exists? This seems as though instead of supporting a worldview that's not naturalism, it's just saying, here's a philosophical conundrum that I can think of about naturalism when it comes to demonstrating like that it exists or whatever. But it's literally all we have from my perspective. Like, you can't show me something that's not natural. You can come up with a philosophical quandary that is interesting to think about measurement, but that doesn't get me to thus a deity of some form is true.
Yeah.
It's just saying, here's an interesting philosophical quandary.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
And my naturalistic worldview seems to work just fine to get me up in the morning, to feed me, to get where I have to go, and to come back. And even if it's not perfect, and even if there's no way to establish that I'm not existing in some sort of greater universe or whatever you want to say, okay, for purposes of this illusion, I'm functioning just fine. The tool has always worked. How do I evaluate that? Because the tool says so.
That's the pragmatist view. But the problem with the pragmatist view is that it doesn't get us to truth. It only gives us instrumental truth.
How does your view get us to truth? How does your view get us to truth?
Mm-hmm.
How?
And how can you establish that your view, what those truths are?
Yeah. Give me the view that gets us to truth.
Give me a truth that we don't have access to, that you
Right.
can prove is actually a truth and not just a thing.
I wouldn't say that you don't have access to it. I think everyone has access to it.
Okay, sure. That we don't have access to using a naturalistic set of tools.
I mean, sure. I think you do. Well, you would agree though that like
What is it? Give us one. Go ahead.
Mind is.
Give us one.
Well, you would agree, right, that the mind is something that is not natural, right?
No.
That the mind is.
No, I would not agree.
To its,
The mind is a something. I'll agree with that. I don't.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is that the content, you have thoughts, and there's content to your thoughts, and the contents of your thoughts
There's lots of people that would disagree with that.
right?
when it
And
comes to
proposition. Well, well, I don't know. Do you disagree with that?
I totally disagree with that. And like, I absolutely disagree with that. Like, so I love me a good chat about brains. We're about to go over. So can you do me a favor? And the next time I host, call back and we can talk about minds. Please, 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 please. I'm not just saying that I know people are going to say, oh, she's trying to get him off but this is my favorite thing to talk about. So I'm actually disappointed that we're going over and we have to take the next call.
Yeah, come back.
Can you please call back the next time I host and you and I can have a conversation about minds? You seem like an interesting interlocutor and I think I would enjoy exploring this subject with you. So please do, but we do have to let you go. Charlie, I'm sorry.
No problem.
And I'm sorry too.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry in Canadian. He's sorry in America. All right. Thank you, Charlie. Okay. All right.
We have the promo.
Pardon me. Yeah, we have a promo. The
I love
ATA
them.
hosts several shows other than the Atheist Experience, like the Nonprofits and Secular Sexuality and Truth Wanted and Talk Heathen. If you didn't catch all of the shows this week, here is a taste of the things that you have missed so that you can go and check them out.
This is a great opportunity to give yourself a big old orgasm. Or, better yet, give somebody else one.
Okay.
There's the crew camp. Look at that crew. Look at that crew. And the cats. The cats are important to the crew's success. Cats are important to the crew's success. Ask any YouTuber.
Before we get into this, can we just acknowledge that Kenneth Copeland's like preacher voice is basically Hulk Hogan? Right?
And he's so
it's Hulk Hogan.
Hello, and welcome to Talk Heathen, the show that takes a long, deep sniff from the sweaty armpit of theism and gags mildly before dousing it with the deodorant of logic and reason.
Gosh, it almost makes it look like I say a lot. But,
those make me so happy.
I liked it better when I was dialect. So I just want to say, Shannon Q, we miss you, and Vagina.
Oh,
it's become your battle cry.
That is my legacy. That is what I've left for the world. That is my legacy. You're welcome, internet. You're welcome. Also, vagina. All right. All right. So we are going to move on to the next caller. Do you have any preferences, Johnny? If not, I'm going to do it.
I have a preference, and I don't know if I'm going to regret it. I would say,
do it.
Mr. Batman.
You want to have the honors, or you want me to?
Yeah, I can do that.
Let's do it.
Mr. Batman, you are on the Atheist Experience with Shannon Q and Johnny P. Please mind your P's and Q's with us. What you say? Why atheists want scientific evidence for God when science presupposes God doesn't exist? Okay, let her rip.
Good evening, boys and girls. It's good to be on the show. Thank you very much for having me. I am Mr. Batman. I am also a science teacher. So in order to do science, you have to have certain natural aspects that have to be in place, such as the uniformity of nature. The uniformity of nature is the fact that all of the physical world works under uniform law-like patterns. We call these uniform law-like patterns natural laws, like laws of gravity, magnetism, thermodynamics, logic, mathematics. Where do those laws come from? Why do they not change over time? And why are they going to be here tomorrow?
I'm sorry, you lost me on the precept script there. Sorry, I zoned
Yeah.
out. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What's called a covenantal apologist. I understand that we have a covenant with a loving, living, logical lawgiver God.
Cool. You believe we have a covenant with a loving, living, logical lawgiver. Please prove that we have a covenant with a loving, living, natural, or whatever lawgiver. Living. Did I miss an L?
Be in Exodus. That would also
Living, loving.
Deuteronomy.
She's just a woman.
Proof that God exists is the Bible itself. But in order for us to actually make
The proof that God exists is the Bible itself. Wow. So a napkin that says everything on this napkin is true is proof that everything on the napkin is true. And then I say you should give Johnny $1 million. It's the right thing to do. Would therefore be true? No, you don't mean that. So what do you actually mean by that?
have the laws of cause and effect, sir.
Did you hear anything that I said?
He's just talking straight through it.
Yeah, he's just talking straight through. You're going to have to slow your roll there, Mr. Batman, because we're not as sharp as you are, Dark Knight of Logic. So please give us. Let's break it down. Why is the Bible the thing that we must turn to?
I'm talking about the covenant. That's the evidence for the covenant is the Bible. Now,
okay. So why should we believe that the Bible is true?
Relationships are necessary.
Why should we believe that the Bible is true, Mr. Batman?
The sum of his word is truth. What is truth, sir? Can you tell me what truth is?
What is truth? It's that which comports with reality.
Excellent. That's the correspondence theory of reality. Since you need reality in order to actually know what is true, where does time, space, and matter come from? Because that's
I don't know. I don't know where time, space, and matter come from.
Now that you define truth, tell me how the universe came into existence.
Yeah.
God's real.
Iluvatar created the Ainur, and they sang the universe into existence. But then Melkor, who became Morgoth, sang a discordant tune. No, it's in the book. It's in the book. He sang a discordant tune, and then Iluvatar's like, you know what, Melkor? I predicted that. I'm weaving your discordant tune into the main theme of the Song of the Ainur. So sorry, bro. And then the Valar went out into Ea, and they created the world of Arda as the song predicted. And then while they were creating it, they created the first children of Iluvatar, the elves, right? And then I think it was Orome. Got really I'm so excited about the children. So he created the dwarves. Maybe he created the dwarves first, but then I think it was Iluvatar said, "No, you can't do that." Okay, I'll stop.
Is this Lord of the Rings? Oh, okay, sorry. I'm
Silmarillion.
Wow. Oh, fair. Okay, I don't know.
But it's in the book, Shannon. It's in the book, and it's proof of itself. So all we have to do is no. What do we have to do? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Batman. Tell us the real deal
about science. Would you like to talk about science, sir? Because science requires cause and effect relationship.
I'm having a good time talking about Tolkien. Yeah. Science is a process. I know that.
Straight through the whole thing.
Yeah.
You just kept going, but Mr. Batman, you kept going through everything Johnny said as though he wasn't even speaking. Did you call to have a discussion, really, or is this a presuppositional apologist?
Presuppositionalist. I'm a covenant.
Where do you?
I gave you my answer. You don't like me. I don't really care. I'm asking science. In the previous caller, you were talking about truth and science. I have science.
We were having a great conversation with the previous caller because they're an honest interlocutor, and I was enjoying exploring the concepts with them because we could have a back and forth where we both listened to each other. This is how conversations generally work. One of us says mouth noises out of their face, and then the other person uses their ear holes to listen to those mouth noises and waits for that to be done. And then they think about the thing you said, and then they make mouth noises that reflect that they were thinking about that thing that they were listening to. What's happening here is that we're attempting to have a conversation with you, and the moment we interject, you just keep on talking until we take you off mute and then get agitated.
And that's why the previous caller is invited back. You may or may not be invited back, Mr. Batman.
I'm asking you a question.
All right.
Okay.
invited back or not.
Fair enough. Yeah, you know what? I don't care if you don't care.
Why do laws?
But ask me the question. I'll try to answer. I might just say, I don't know. Go ahead. And if you think that's a gotcha,
It's vacuous.
it's not going to be a gotcha.
Yes, it is a gotcha. It is a gotcha because your worldview must be able to explain everything in the world that you view. That's why it's called a worldview, sir.
Really?
Once again,
Shannon, do you think that's true? Do I have to be able to explain everything? Why don't I? If I could do that, I'd go to Vegas.
So also, if you have, I can propose something I can propose something that explains everything. Just definitionally, I can define that concept into existence, right? That's the whole flying spaghetti monster thing, right? Like you can posit something that explains everything and then just point to it and say that explains everything. But it doesn't, right? Like there's nothing useful that you can glean from that. You can't do anything in reality with that concept that is helpful to acquiring knowledge. All it is just a posit of something that explains everything and then acting as though it does. Now, does my worldview need to explain everything? No, it doesn't. It doesn't need to explain everything to be true. But I, Shannon, know doesn't need to explain everything that is existent in the external reality around me in order for it to be true. And as a part of my worldview, as a matter of fact, one of the things that I am proudest of in my worldview is that I don't actually think it explains everything just definitionally. I think that one of the most interesting and fascinating and beautiful things about my worldview is its humility. It is I understand that I need to learn things. I do not wander around saying, I have the explanation for everything. And if you can't, acquiesce to this ridiculous philosophical, gotcha that I have come up with, then that means not only is your worldview nonsense, but apparently, evidently, by some logical leap that I can't even begin to fathom, also simultaneously believes that my worldview is true, and my worldview has to do with all of these internally inconsistent things that I'm not even going to address, by the way. We're not going to talk about what I actually believe. Instead, what we're going to talk about is why I think that your belief system or structure is nonsense, because it doesn't explain everything when mine does. It's just a circular, nonsense, non-productive conversation. Are we going to do something different than that today, or should we just hang up? Because it drives me nuts.
Yeah, Shannon, God magicked it into existence. So there you go. That explains everything. And that's obviously superior to your ever-evolving, ever-enfolding understanding of the world and the human race's ever-blooming understanding of the material world. No, God magicked it happened. It has an answer for everything. Therefore, checkmate forever, atheists. Go get your shine box.
I'm convinced.
To be able to do the scientific method.
You just kept talking. Okay, goodbye. See you later. Well, that sure was fun. You just kept
in quotation marks.
I don't know how you can even. Oh man, what motivates someone to wake up in the morning and
the Holy Spirit.
Yeah,
the Holy Spirit.
The power of Christ compelled them. All right. You ready for the next one? Yeah. Oh, I'm supposed to do a thing. See, this is why I shouldn't be in charge. I drop the ball every time is why I shouldn't be in charge. Okay, so we're all excited to tell you that you can get Atheist Experience merchandise by visiting tiny.cc/merch ACA. You can get shirts and hoodies and coffee mugs and stickers and a whole lot more. And right below the chat, you will notice that there is a donate now box. Donations made there mean that the ACA will get 100% of the proceeds. YouTube does not take a cut, and that is the best way to support us right now as you're watching live. If you would like to continue the discussion after the show, join us on the Atheist Community Discord. It's a FanRug Discord server, and it's at tiny.cc/ACD Discord. And I'm actually going to be there after the show today, having a little chitty chat with everybody. So if you'd like to interact with the host periodically, sometimes we go on after the shows, and you can go in and chat with us. And finally, we want to send a big thank you. See, this is why I would have dropped the ball. This is the most important part of the show. A big thank you to our crew, our volunteers who put all of this show together every week and deal with my nonsense. And they're the best, and I love them. And I almost forgot this because I got frustrated, and I would have neglected the people that make all of this happen. So if you do come to the Discord after this, make sure you chastise me thoroughly for almost missing the most important part. Our volunteers are tireless and deal with more than I can even begin to express to you, including me, sucking at everything. All right. Last time I let you pick, that everything went well. Why don't you pick again, Johnny? Go ahead.
Is that true? Did everything go well? All right.
Everything went so good. I loved it. Your
Goodness
turn.
gracious me. Let's go with Johan.
All right, let's do it.
Johan, your question here is: should I withhold belief without evidence because of a moral reason, or is this another reason? That's your question?
Yes, yes, basically right. Thank you, and happy Sunday to you.
And to you.
I also, if I could, I just want to thank the atheist community of Austin for your position statement on separation of church and state. I think that is the most important part of the American Constitution and what sets the United States apart from the countries in Europe, for example. And I would like to just patriotically say that I take pride in the fact that I believe that has its origins in the Netherlands with the philosophy of Spinoza. And also, I'm a Spinozan pantheist. So I must say, having listened to the show today, that I'm reminded once again of why I have much more in common with atheists than I have with theists.
I'll tell you what, we're looking for friends and allies or wherever we can get them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I have to say about that. So, so is it Johan or Johan? I want to call you the right name. Johan.
It's Johan.
Johan. Very good.
Thank you.
So should you withhold belief without evidence because of a moral reason, or is there another reason? Well, I guess it's a practical reason because I think you already do that. You withhold belief in various claims in life. Until you have evidence for it. I want to sell you this car. This is a great car. I'm charging you $10,000. You withhold belief that purchasing the car is a good idea for you, that the car is actually intact and functional until you have gone to investigate it and kick the tires, maybe bring a mechanic over to take a look at various doohickeys on the car to make sure that it's in good order. You do it already, because if you don't do it, then you're going to be falling prey to every claim that comes your way, and you don't do a perfect job of it. None of us do a perfect job of evaluating all of the relevant evidence before we hold certain claims to be true. So I think it's practical. Now, does it rise to the level of a moral imperative? Well, if you care about living an informed life, I guess it could be a moral imperative. Do we want to teach our children to do that? I would think we would, because we don't want to see our children fall prey to charlatans who make a bunch of claims, never provide any evidence, and tell them what they should do, and then they just obey. Does that answer your question?
I think that's an excellent answer, and the example of the car salesman is a good one. I just would say there is another consideration, and that is that in the case of the car, we have a demonstrable outcome. One way or the other, I can buy the car and then find out that it has all these problems that are going to require repairs, and it really wasn't worth the $10,000, and I've been taken.
Right.
So that's a claim with a demonstrable outcome. There are claims that have a demonstrable outcome which has not yet been demonstrated. And an example came up earlier in the show. This is the example of extraterrestrial life.
Right.
It could be demonstrated, but it has not yet been. And in this case, is my belief, one way or the other, a question of morality. And I ask it that way because of something Matt has said on occasion, and I don't want to saddle you with Matt's opinions, but I just ask you if you concur. He has said that a secular humanist foundation for morality can be based on the concept of well-being. And I agree with that. Not only do I agree with it, I think that's a descriptive and not a normative view of morality. And even those who say that morality comes from God, it's really coming from human beings, and that's based on the concept of either individual or, in most cases, community well-being. It's what supports the group. So in the case of something that hasn't yet been demonstrated, or in the case of something which is entirely not demonstrable, for example, the previous caller brought up something that is not demonstrable. In my opinion, he asked the question, where do the laws of physics come from? That's not a demonstrable question. There's no answer. And so in this
This
case,
might be. I'm so sorry. Can I interrupt for a second? And I'm interrupting out of ignorance, not malice. It's just I don't understand what connection we're assessing between believing things that are true and what is moral. And it sounds like, if I'm understanding correctly, like our definitions of morality would probably comport for the most part, about, well-being, group well-being and stuff like that. So I guess my question is, what's the connection that we're looking to make or refute between belief in true things and morality?
yes, thank you for steering me in that direction.
It's just because I was like, I'm getting lost.
We all want to be at the table here, yeah. Could you explain, please?
The connection, I think, is so in the case of, I think we could all agree, in the case of something that has a demonstrable solution, for example, the car purchase, we want to believe, in that case, we want to believe that which is true. In the case of something that has not yet been demonstrated but might someday be, it's not so clear that I want to believe that which is true. It's, in that case, I think I want to believe that which is, I say want to believe. It's really not a matter of want, it's a matter of belief.
Right.
I believe.
So you're believing something that you couldn't conceivably demonstrate to be true. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, right. Yes.
Okay. So we have beliefs that we... Sorry. I guess my answer, I think I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I think that I'm getting it now. And in that instance, in that particular instance, like I think that you would, like I said before, apportion your belief to like how it affects your day-to-day life. Most people likely would. And if you didn't, if it was something benign that didn't have an effect on your day-to-day life, and there was no way to appropriately measure or assess it to come to a belief that you could, with any degree of certainty say is true or demonstrate that is true, I think that would be amoral. I don't think that would be either moral or immoral. If you were withholding belief, or were somewhere on the spectrum of withholding belief, I think it would be amoral if it didn't have a direct impact to how you live your life and interact with others.
I thought of something, Johan.
Yes.
Supposing you had, and I am not accusing you of this, okay? Not even Mr. Batman. But suppose you had a belief that gave you some peace of mind, like there were two parts. One, if you believed that this was true, then you were going to get like a super reward and you were going to be awesome and everyone's going to love you and all that stuff. But you also you also believed that that a certain class of people did not deserve civil rights protections. Okay. So you had no way to prove that the first proposition was true, but you believed it for not rational reasons, but because of emotional reasons. It gave you peace of mind. It gave you the ability to sleep at night. And so then you went ahead and believed that was the second proposition was something that was worthy of believing. You did it. You believe it because it makes you feel good. There's no evidence for it, and then you took action upon that that concept on that belief. I would say not only is it amoral, I would suggest from a secular humanist perspective that would be immoral, because you are preferring your own convenience and comfort over the well-being of a class of people who are now being denied protections under the law. That's very vague, but there's a lot of people that kind of do that, right? Well, I don't make the rules. God makes the rules. I'm just reporting what the rules are, and I believe that this rule book is accurate. So I'm sorry, I can't allow you to get married or to have housing assistance or to adopt children or to do all these other things. I think that's an immoral action from the secular humanist perspective. Now, from their theistic perspective, they're just following the rules, and it would be moral. But it's their claims are unfalsifiable, and therefore, by preferring, let's say, an unfalsifiable claims, they to falsifiable claims, like removing the ability of people's ability to get housing protection, various civil rights, the ability to adopt. You are actually demonstrably harming them, causing them emotional distress, physical distress, economic distress, increasing suicide rates, yada, 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 yada. So I think that would be an immoral action if you hit the rubber hit the road. If you're just keeping it all floating around in your head, then I'm not sure.
Yes, I think that's very well put, and I think that is an important distinction between beliefs and actions. However, it is clear, as you say, that beliefs can lead to immoral actions, and the example you gave, you need to look no further than the 20th century history of Europe to see where that leads, and that is, I think, quite clearly to all thinking people, whether theist or atheist, that is immoral to believe that one group is inferior and therefore needs to die or needs to have their rights obliterated.
Johan, go to the 19th century, 18th, 17th, 16th, 15th. Go back to the Middle Ages as well. You don't have to go to the 20th century to see Europe doing things like that. Anytime people are not recognizing the full humanity, the full equal access to justice, you will see people taking bad actions. And the 20th century is just freshest. But what about the 21st century? We see it in the world today, and it's been going on through all of time. And I would hope that by having these conversations and by holding the leaders and the people to the fire, not literally, that we sometimes, it seems like that would be a very soothing thing to do. But by forcing them to recognize the full humanity of outgroups, I think we get closer to a state where that won't happen in the future. I don't know.
I like that. Does that clear up where...
The underlying thought that gives rise to those actions is a misguided view of what serves well-being. It's in the case of Germany, for example, it was a misguided view that the German people were somehow superior and entitled to rule Europe, and that was given as the reason for their actions being moral among the Germans. But clearly, it did not serve them, and it did not serve anyone. So the proof is in the pudding, so to speak.
Yeah.
It also negates the definition of morals if what you're doing harms others. So, but we do have to let you go. That was interesting. I'm going to listen back to that because that was interesting. I love chit chats about morality. I like just as an observer. I like those. So, but we do have to let you go. Johan, give us a call back some other time. Thank you for being somebody that was so good to talk to.
Hey, you're invited back. You're invited back,
Absolutely.
Johan.
Come back.
Yes.
See you later. All right. We have time for one last call. And this person waited for me. I'm so sorry that you waited. My goodness. So we are going to speak to Jim. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
What should we talk about today? Hi. Sorry to make you wait.
Not a problem. I'm probably going to be the most boring caller you have tonight. But
no, never.
Best for life. I want to come on because Shannon, I've watched several of your shows, and I've listened to your explanations, and I read that you have a degree in psychology. Or is that what you have? Degree in psychology? My apologies.
Yeah, no, you're right. I don't know where you read that. That's interesting, but yeah, I do.
Yeah, you were somewhere on YouTube. It says you have, yeah. So I'm just wondering, like, I grew up a theist, like a lot of people, born and raised, programmed, went through all the teachings, Bible study, and all that stuff. Every question I asked was answered with the God of the gaps, of course, which left me to ask a lot of questions, and I'm kind of in the crossroads right now. Oh, by the way, I just want to throw in that as a father of two amazing boys, I'm absolutely proud that I didn't have Mr. Batman as a science teacher for either of them.
Oh man, I hope not. I hope not.
I was listening, and as I've raised two kids and both of them are pretty, almost finished school, I'm just happy that neither of them had to deal with that. Anyway.
Oh man. What was your question?
You hear that, Mr. Batman? No one likes you.
No, he's still talking. He probably doesn't even know we hung up on him.
Go on. Sorry, Jim. Please.
No, but I was listening. I was like, "Is this for real? Did you guys stage this?"
No. This just happens.
No. Wow, it's love.
Anyway,
all right,
love.
So what was your question, Jim? What's up? Let's talk about you.
My question, I wanted to hear, and I mean, I apologize if I'm asking for kind of a dumbed down explanation, but really what it all boils down to with me now is the answer: is there a soul? To me, that answers the questions, because I've done all the research. I took the time to research. Of course, the Bible is defunct. I only learned Christianity because of where I lived. Like I said, if I was born in Iraq, I would be a Muslim. All that I've completely gone on with, but I'm stuck on the whole business of a soul. And Shannon, I wanted to hear your explanation as to why there is no soul. I've listened to you and Matt, but I haven't got a full explanation on it.
As to why I can give you why it fell apart for me. I can do that.
Why you feel there's no soul? Yeah.
So when you're looking at the concept of the soul, it's something exterior to you that is you, right? So it's something that even if you see it as interacting with your body, it is not your body. But is you, right? So where it fell apart for me was when I started studying neuroscience, because every way I tried to morph my concept of the soul, it no longer could comport with what I was learning about the brain. So the reason that I don't think that there is a soul is because if there was a soul, and if that soul is me, I can't explain why something can happen to my brain physically that affects that makes that change somehow. Also, the mechanism for which it would interact with my body, because it's undeniable that your brain affects your movement, it affects your behavior, it affects your mood, it's where your thoughts are housed, it's where all of your perceptions are, it's where everything integrates. That's just undeniable to me. That is a fact. So this was the linchpin for me, Jim. This was the linchpin, was the mechanism for interaction. How something outside of me that is me managed to make my brain do stuff, which is what would have had to have been the case, right? It would have had to have made my brain do stuff. And it was sodium ion transmission causing neuronal firing. So for me to do anything, and I've expressed this in multiple locations before, if for me to do anything, for me to have any thought, for me to even have this conversation with you, neurons in my brain have to fire. For neurons in my brain to fire, there needs to be a chemical called ATP produced in the mitochondria of the neuronal cell. That chemical, that ATP that is produced, opens sodium ion channels in the cell when there is a certain sort of critical threshold and ratio on either side of that neuron of sodium and potassium ions. And once that channel opens and that threshold is met, they kind of switch back and forth. That creates the action potential in the cell for that cell to fire, that neuron cell to fire, for it to do anything at all. Now, if the soul exists and is me, it would have to somehow find a way to manipulate that process to get behavioral or thought outcomes. And I don't see it as possible or feasible for a soul to somehow manifest sodium and potassium ions in the proper threshold on either side of a cell membrane in order for a neuron to fire to release a neurotransmitter to even so much as move my hand, yet alone operate my entire body. It doesn't seem feasible or possible.
If I'm quiet, I'm making notes. Sorry, I gotta.
Oh, it's,
I gotta go read.
Quiet is a refreshing change for us. You mean you didn't just keep talking? Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I wanted to. I wanted to make these notes because I've had this debate with many people. My parents are like diehard theists, and the conversations I've had, and I've gone over this, and I said, like, the little knowledge that I have with science, I've worked 25 years in healthcare, and I've seen. I fortunately had a conversation with somebody who unfortunately, had a massive heart attack, and he was under for, I think he told me it was like the time was 3 minutes and 19 seconds. I think the total time was when they brought him back. And of course, the first question I had for him, I said, "What do you remember? What did you experience?" He said, "I was sitting at my kitchen table 1 minute," and he said, the next minute, he said, "I opened my eyes with a very hot, sore chest that felt like someone beat it with a tree." I said, "So you didn't, did you experience anything else?" He said, "Nothing." And it kind of stuck in my head. Just listen to him. I said, "You didn't have that glowing light?" He said, "No." I said, "So did you out of body experience?" "No." And he was laying it all out to me, and he was clinically dead for over 3 minutes. And I just kind of this is not what I was taught. Yeah. And after that is when I started doing the research, and everything you said, I'm not up on fully on what you, in the knowledge you have. There's no way I haven't gotten into that, but I am going to look further with the whole explanation with the ATP.
Yeah, and
it fascinates me. It's go ahead.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. It's just that it's a really fascinating topic to explore, and it's one of the reasons I've grown. I love discussing souls, because it's an opportunity for me to talk about my nerd out favorite topic, which is the brain, and B, because it was so intrinsic, right? There's nothing from a psychological perspective that will tie you to your belief more strongly than your belief getting to hold the definition of who you are, which is what soul concepts are, right? Soul concepts are theology hijacking your sense of self, and then defining what a sense of self even is, and then creating the parameters through which that sense of self can be either preserved or seen to fruition. Which is one of the reasons that it infuriated me so much. When I read about Phineas Gage is somebody that you can look into, and I realized that you can lose components of your brain, and we have demonstrated and can quite clearly see that when you lose certain portions of your brain, that you're going to have aggressive affect that's going to fundamentally change who you are. When you look at somebody who's going through alcohol withdrawal that has delusions, it changes their outward manifestation and self-perception of who they are. We can do all of these things that augment the brain, that change who we are. And if we do that, is the soul changing too? What if that was involuntary? So if we're tying a soul into salvation and then something involuntarily happens to us, and that thing that involuntarily happens to us changes who we are in a detrimental way, makes us more violent or makes us no longer religious, for an example. That's a thing that could happen. Then we lose our salvation because of something that involuntarily happened to us that we can make predictions about and we see happen consistently. So where does a soul fit in there? That doesn't really seem particularly fair. A lot of that stuff, once that unraveled for me, and I realized that it wasn't viable based on anything that I knew, and it couldn't comport with any of the conceptions that were proposed to me. That was it. I was done. And now it's the least viable thing to me. When people argue for it, I don't get it. I don't get how you can't see that it's not.
What you're saying makes perfect sense. And I referenced a show I watched recently with Matt. I can't remember who he was hosting with, but he said he talked about the whole concept of a soul with heaven. And he said, what have you learned and I was just amazed to listen to Matt as a training to be a Baptist minister. And he commented how he said when he learned this, he learned that all negative emotions are gone in heaven. He said that kind of scares me, because the freedom to have negative emotions is what makes me who I am. He said, when I get down in my mood and I come back out, it makes me feel better. He said, it scares me, the thought that I would never have a negative emotion again, because that makes me who I am. And when he said that, I was really taken back. Because we learn.
It also directly contradicts any theological conceptualizations of free will. And those conceptualizations of free will are what sin is predicated upon and salvation is required from. So then once you stop existing in your corporeal form, you no longer have free will. So you briefly had free will, just enough free will to be judged, should you get it, and then it's taken away from you. So then are you even you anymore? And also, like, one of the things that I think about is, like, if I go to heaven, let's just say, so like something happens and I'm converted and it's all true, and I go to heaven, but my son doesn't. Am I going to be happy up there in eternal separation from my son? I can't see a universe where that's possible. So am I going to spend my entire eternity in abject misery, separated from my child, or is something going to happen to me to make me not care anymore? And at that point, is that even me? Couldn't be. Whatever version of me that matters to me doesn't exist anymore at that point, because something has been done to me to take me away. So
that is exactly where my thoughts are. Yeah, because yes, I could live the standard life, do everything I can to help people and all that. Yeah. My son could accidentally, get drunk and go out and kill somebody in a car, and I'm separated from him. Yeah, that to me, if I go there and he goes to another place, that's torture.
Are you from the East Coast, bud? Your accent sounds a lot like mine. Sorry.
I am from the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, so we are.
Yes, bud. Yes, bud. All right, there we go. Now I knew it. I was like, I hear a little bit of Atlantic Canada in you.
I'm trying to hide it. I know where I am, but
I do too.
I can't hide it anymore. How's it getting on?
I know. She's going good, bud. She's going good. I hide it too when I'm on an air, and I was starting to feel it come out of me because I could hear it coming out of you. It's like, this bud's from the East Coast. I can speak proper English.
My crowning moment. My wife and my kids and all were going to visit some family in Nova Scotia. I got my best friend in Nova Scotia. I had family over there. We all enjoyed it. I don't mean to get off on a rant, but I was in the airport, and Jean-Paul Tremblay showed up with his family.
Oh, best kind. Nice.
Anybody knows Jean-Paul Tremblay? He is Julian from the Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah.
I went up to him and I said, I'm a big fan. I said, I've watched your movies 1,000 times. And he shook my hand. Yeah, he said, I got your SwearNet movie on my laptop. He said, I hope you brought headphones. And he was there with his family. His wife is a Newfoundlander, so it was great to meet. But anyway, yes. So you've partially revealed my identity. Yes, I am.
Oh, I'm sorry, bud. I'm sorry. It just, you made my day. I love to hear the accent. We got to let you go though. We've already gone over. I appreciate having a chat with you, and I hope you're eating some turkey this weekend. But happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. See you later. Thanks, bud. Bye. Sorry, that was super Canadian. I was like,
Yeah, I've got a.
I know where the accent's from.
That's cool.
Sounds like the one I hide all the time. All right, cool. We've come to an end. If you would like to join us, we will be in the Discord briefly after. Brief Discord plug. Just give us a few minutes. And
yeah,
how do you feel, Johnny? How you doing?
I had a great time. It went by really quickly, and yes.
Yes. And dogs.
And thank you for being there with me, Shannon. It's been great doing a show with you. Finally, I've been wanting this for quite some time. So I'm about to get eaten. As you can see.
Thank you for doing a show with me. It was a pleasure and a delight, and I'm looking forward to listening back. You had a lot of insightful things to say that I want to listen back to. And as always, everyone, help elevate the discourse. Bye.
Bye.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your eyes.
It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.